For the 6th season in a row, Walters is the official bar of the Nats Chat podcast, located across the street from the ballpark, just off South Capitol Street.
Insurance isn't a one-size-fits-all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy. Or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple for you to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
Brazoban to the belt, the pitch. Swinging a chopper toward third. Abrams breaks to the plate. Bichette can't pick it up, and the game is tied. He tried a barehand grab and fanned on it. Bruhan, the shortstop, slid to stop it, but that's much too late. And the Nationals have tied the game. Abrams crosses the plate. Weaver delivers the tying run at 6-6 here in the 11th.
3 balls, 2 strikes. Again, this will be pitch number 8 of the at-bat. And here it comes. Swing and a line drive, base hit into left center field. Bichette scores. Soto's coming home. Throw going to third, not in time there. Beatty heads for second on the throw to third. And the Mets have turned it into a big inning. 2-run single for Brett Beatty. And the Mets have played it 4 in the 12th. They lead it 10-6. Next one coming in line to right center field. On the run is Weimer. Can't get there. This will clear the bases with Bichette heading for second base. And the Mets have put 10 runs on the board. 2-run double for Bichette. It's now the Mets 16 and the Nationals 6. Mercy, mercy.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He is at Nationals Park, where we on Monday evening had a wild game to conclude a wild day for the Nats. A 16-7, 12-inning loss to the New York Mets at Nationals Park in game 1 of a 4-game series. This was a game in which the Nats overcame a 5-3 7th-inning deficit, but also gave up 10 runs in the top of the 12th. The game took 4 hours and 8 minutes. The game included the Nats committing 4 errors. The game included the Nats starting center fielder Jacob Young leaving the game due to a hit by pitch. His replacement, Joey Weimer, got on base 5 times, and then he got hurt on a hit by pitch. The game included a Nats position player, third baseman / second baseman Jorbit Vivas, pitching, although the umpires at first weren't sure if Vivas was allowed to pitch. Bottom line, the Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 23-25, are number 1 in MLB in runs scored at 262, and are dead last in MLB in runs allowed at 284. This installment of Nats Chat is brought to us by Shirt Good. Owned and operated by a diehard Nats fan, Shirt Good makes funny and local shirts, such as the iconic Howie Kendrick foul pole shirt. Check them out at shirtgoodhq.com or at shirtgoodhq on Instagram, and use the code NATSCHAT for 10% off your order. Well, also on Monday was big-time news prior to the game. The Nats on Monday promoted shortstop / second baseman Seaver King from AA Harrisburg to AAA Rochester. He, per MLB Pipeline, is the Nats' number 8 overall prospect. And we on Monday evening, during the game, had breaking news from Mark. The Nats are promoting outfielder Dylan Cruz from AAA Rochester back to the majors. Mark, as crazy as this game was, that news that you broke may well be the biggest item from Monday. But as we are speaking in these early morning hours of Tuesday, my friend, Monday was quite the day.
Oh, yeah. And there's even more, because the corresponding move, if you want to call it that, we still don't know exactly how it's going to shake out. But the Nationals demoted Brady House to AAA after the game. And we were wondering all night, okay, Dylan Cruz is coming up. Who's going down? Is this the end of the line for Joey Weimer? Then Jacob Young gets hit by the pitch, and you're thinking, okay, he might be going to the IL, so that wouldn't be the obvious move to make. But the x-rays on Young were negative. He appears to be day-to-day. Wiemer, as you said, gets hit by a pitch. X-rays on his hand, negative. He's day-to-day. So if you're not putting anybody on the IL, and you're probably not going to demote Joey Wiemer while there's a question about his injury status, it appears that the move is sending Brady House to AAA, a move that we did throw out there as a possibility a week or two ago, but I'm not sure I really saw that coming right now as the corresponding move. I'll just say, and we're going to get into all this stuff, there may be a lot more to come in the next 24 to 48 hours. I don't know this is a simple 1-for-1 Cruz for House. There could be some other things at play here. And I think the events of Monday, as chaotic as they were, probably left the Nationals scrambling in a lot of ways to figure out exactly what it is that they're doing.
Isn't it something that we get Cruz being brought back to the majors and potentially the corresponding roster move is another important player in this rebuild being demoted to Rochester? It's almost like a 1-for-1. Just as you want to feel good about all the key pieces being at the major league level at the same time, or at least more of the key pieces being together, another one is being demoted to AAA Rochester. That's a buzzkill in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because the whole thought is, okay, here we go. We're getting all the best kids up here. They're all going to be in the lineup together. Well, hold on. Not exactly yet. Obviously, there's a lot to be excited about Dylan Cruz coming back to the big leagues, and I think that's still the number one headline of the day. But it is disappointing that it might be at the expense of another first-round pick cornerstone player who got off to a good start to the season, then cooled off dramatically. I think had been doing a little better lately, but I'm going to guess, and we didn't get to talk to anyone about it because the move was announced long after we had finished our post-game work. I'm going to guess that they just believe he still needs some serious work in a lower pressure environment, particularly the defense at third base and probably the pitch selection, everything at the plate. We'll see. I don't know that's a long-term move. They don't really have an obvious alternative. At the moment, the guy who finished the game as the last pitcher on the mound might be the everyday third baseman, Jorbit Vivas, unless there's other stuff going on. And again, this is all still fresh. I mean, maybe there are other moves to come. Maybe Yo-Yo Morales is coming up as well, and maybe they're going to look at him at third base. I don't want to speculate too much here because there's a lot of moving parts, I think. But House was struggling. I think there was probably a sense that, kind of like they did with Dylan Cruz at the end of spring training, let's let him go work on some things in a lower pressure environment, try to get himself right with the idea that he will be back at some point, of course. And then with Dylan Cruz, made some improvements. It was kind of slow. It wasn't like it was off the bat, wasn't great. It's not like he was absolutely tearing the cover off the ball, but there was steady improvement from him. All the reports were that he had a good attitude about it, still playing great defense, good base running. And they decided, okay, now's the time to bring him back, and let's see if he can put into practice everything that they had asked of him while he was down there at AAA, and maybe take a little pressure off himself and not feel like he has to be the savior for this team, which it felt like at times he may have had that kind of mindset.
I wonder how much of the House demotion is the defense. I brought this up to you on the last installment of the podcast. His defense has regressed, and I wonder how much of him being demoted is that. But, I don't think we should lose sight of this. This is not supposed to be what's happening with Brady House. He was supposed to be the team's everyday third baseman this season. He was supposed to be a fixture at the major league level this season, and instead now he's being demoted back to AAA Rochester before the end of May. With Dylan Cruz, so he, of course, had the awful exhibition season, gets demoted to AAA Rochester prior to the start of the regular season. He for Rochester this season, 177 plate appearances, OPS 777. You look at some of the batted ball data, he lately has been hitting balls especially hard. He has been chasing less, which is a good sign. And, I guess we'll see. But, there is a ton of pressure here on him to do well, because if he doesn't do well in this stint at the major league level, then you have to say, then what? Do you send him back down? This time, do you keep him up and just let him keep struggling? What exactly are we looking at? So this is exciting, but this is a big deal, and there is real pressure on him to perform. I don't think there are any two ways about this. This time needs to be the time for Dylan Cruz at the major league level.
Yeah, I agree. They're going out on a limb here and trusting that it's going to work. And trusting that he is going to be able to block out that pressure and just go play, which is kind of the whole idea of him going to AAA all along was, hey, there's probably too many thoughts swirling through your head. You've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. Just go down there, play every day, and become the player that you're supposed to be. And don't worry about when we're going to call you up. The time will be right, and we'll decide when that is. And they decided that time was now. I'm going to guess that there will be a very long leash here. And so even if he struggles, I don't think you just send him back down very quickly. I don't know what that does for his confidence or how that helps anything in the long run. So my guess is that they would let him struggle up here if it came to that and ride it out for a while. Hopefully that won't be the case. Hopefully he is able to put into practice everything that he has been working on there. One other little side note to this, and I know we've brought this up. This is a subject that you have mentioned before with service time with him. If I did my math right, and don't quote me 100% on this, I believe he was down there long enough that even if he's in the big leagues for the rest of the season, he will not get to 2 full years of service time now in the big leagues, which in theory would delay his free agency for another year. So that the time he did spend in Rochester, and it works out to about 7 weeks or so, is essentially less than the 6 weeks or so that he was in the big leagues as a rookie in 2024. He ends up, if he's here the rest of the year, at, I believe, 167 days, 1 year and 167 days of service time. You need 172 for it to count as a full year of service. So he wouldn't get to 2 years yet, which would delay free agency. Even if he's in the big league consistently now from here on out, he would be delayed in free agency beyond that. And as you have pointed out all along, he and James Wood would no longer be on the same timeline. Cruz would have another year after James Wood.
Yeah, I think that's a big deal. Now, I don't think that that's why Paul Taboni demoted Dylan Cruz, but I do think it's a nice little cherry on top of the sundae, to not have those two guys on the same service time timeline, I do think is a big deal. With Seaver King, I just want to ask this. So he was drafted as a shortstop. He, in the minors, has been playing shortstop and second base. By the way, King did not have a good 2025 season playing for High A Wilmington and Double A Harrisburg. It's been a lot better this season. It's been good to see that. King for Harrisburg this season, 165 plate appearances, OPS 989. So he's being elevated to Triple A Rochester. There had been the thought that long-term he might be an outfielder, but he's not playing outfield. He's playing shortstop and a little bit of second base. Now he's at Rochester. He's on the doorstep of being called up to the majors. What do you think the thinking is right now with Seaver King in terms of the position he plays?
Yeah, so if you go back to when he was drafted in 2024 as the number 10 overall pick, the scouting department at that time was really touting his versatility. When he played at Wake Forest, he was all over the field and able to go infield, outfield, whatever you needed. And they were kind of touting that as that might be his ticket to a fast track to the big leagues, that he could play all over the place. Now, 2 things to keep in mind. Since then, he's pretty much only played shortstop as a professional, 5 games at second base this year, but otherwise it's been entirely at shortstop. Secondly, the scouting people who made those declarations 2 years ago are for the most part no longer with the organization. Entirely new group now in charge that inherited Seaver King, and pretty clearly they view him as a good enough shortstop to keep him there until something happens that says we should move him off that position. Now, that could be his performance, or it could be whatever the needs of the major league team are at the time. I don't think this is going to be a quick AAA up to the big leagues unless he just tears the cover off the ball, which he did do at AA. I'm guessing this is a longer thing, and maybe even he's at AAA for the rest of the season. The thing to watch would be if he is playing really well and you're thinking he might be on the cusp of coming up, watch where he's playing on a daily basis. If they start to use him in other positions, that might be a sign that they're preparing to bring him up and have him be more of a utility guy, because I don't think he would be the national shortstop in the big leagues before this year is over, barring something really strange happening. Even if they traded C.J. Abrams at the deadline, which is a possibility, as we know, I'm going to guess they would move Nasim Nunez to shortstop. So if Seaver King was even coming up, he might be at second base, could be at third base, given what's going on with Brady House, I don't know. But he may not necessarily figure into that whole plan. I don't think he is just the obvious heir apparent to C.J. Abrams at shortstop. I think he would really have to prove himself at AAA and over more than just a couple of months for that to happen.
This episode is brought to you by Shirtgood. Owned and operated by a diehard Nats fan and Maryland native, Shirtgood makes funny and local shirts, hats, and more. For Nats fans, they have a great embroidered hat with the Half Street Southeast street sign, a We'll Always Have 2019 t-shirt with that iconic Howie Kendrick World Series foul pole, and a lot more. There's also a hat and a shirt making fun of that "This copyrighted telecast" baseball disclaimer you always hear. Plus, a lot more for baseball fans, DC area locals, and folks with a good sense of humor. Check them out at shirtgoodhq.com or shirtgoodhq on Instagram. That's SHIRTGOOD, and use code NATSCHAT for 10% off your order.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Baseball fans know every pitch can change a game. Playoff hockey is just as intense. Every shift, every second matters. NHL on TNT has the best coverage, with stars like Paul Bissonnette bringing laughs and Wayne Gretzky breaking down the action. The studio crew makes every game feel bigger, just like a big Nationals win. Playoff hockey is unpredictable, physical, and full of overtime drama. If you love sports, you'll love the energy. Watch the Stanley Cup playoffs on TNT, TBS, truTV, and HBO Max.
Now the Mets have played it for the 12th. The pitch, swing and a line drive, base hit left field. Lau coming up to get it. One runner scored. They'll stop Beatty at third. Throw goes into second. Bruin scores the 5th run of the inning. Semien drives in his 2nd run in as many innings and 17th of the year. And it's now the Mets 11 and the Nationals 6.
All right, with this game on Monday evening. So again, a 12-inning game for which the final score was Mets 16, Nats 7, as the Nats gave up 10 runs in the top of the 12th. This was another game in which the offense came through. 7 runs, 12 hits, which were 6 doubles and 6 singles, 9 walks, 4 for 16 with runners in scoring position. Now, that said, the Nats actually could have and should have scored even more runs. Take it to the bottom of the 7th. The Nats had the bases loaded, nobody out, scored 1 run, which came on a C.J. Abrams RBI sac fly to cut the Nats deficit to 5-4. Bottom of the 10th, the Nats had the bases loaded with 1 out, did not score, keeping the game tied at 5. So as good as the offense was, again, the offense could have been even better. But of course, these days, we're asking for a mountain and then some from this offense because the run prevention has been so bad. But with this game, how about this? Multiple Nats players came off the bench and had big games. So we mentioned what happened with Jacob Young. He is the Nats starting center fielder and number 6 batter, drew a 2-out hit by pitch on his ribs. In the Nats 2-run second was pinch run for by Joey Wiemer, who played center field, went 2 for 2 with an RBI double, an RBI single, 2 walks, and a hit by pitch on a hand. He got x-rays on the hand. The x-rays were negative. He's said to be day-to-day, as is Jacob Young. But Wiemer off the bench, productive. Curtis Mead came off the bench, played first base. He was productive. He went 1 for 2 with an RBI double and 2 walks. Mead in the Nats 1-run 8th had a 2-out opposite field RBI double to the right center field gap to tie the game at 5. Also, James Wood, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, 3 for 6 with a double, an RBI single, another single, and a walk. But also with Wood in this game was some bad defense, as the Nats defense was a big-time issue in this game, as the defense has been a big-time issue in this season. Wood in this game committed 2 errors on the same play, also had another defensive mistake. Wood in the Mets 1-run second committed 2 errors on 1 play. He on a 2-out opposite field single by Tyrone Taylor to right field committed a fielding error and a throwing error, allowing Taylor to get to third base. The next batter, Luis Torrens, had a 2-out full count RBI double down the left field line for a 1-0 Mets lead.
And it's popped in the air down the right field line, chasing is Wood. This one's going to dunk in for a hit along the line, and it's off Wood's glove. Taylor trying for second. Wood picks it up. The throw there is offline. Scoots by Abrams. Backed up by Lyle, but not in time for Taylor to go to third.
Also, the Mets' 2-run fifth, Wood, with runners on first and second, caught an opposite field fly ball by Bo Bichette for the first out. But Wood threw the ball to third base as opposed to second base, allowing the trail runner, Carson Bench, to tag up from first base to second base, in addition to the lead runner, Luis Torrens, tagging up from second base to third base. And the very next pitch, it was amazing how this worked, resulted in a 1-out first pitch opposite field 2-run single by ex-Nat Juan Soto through the left side for a 4-3 Mets lead. And also in that inning was a fielding error by first baseman Luis Garcia Jr. A leadoff opposite field grounder by Luis Torrens went right by Garcia. The play initially was ruled a single, but then correctly got changed to an error. So you had good Nats offense that could have been better. You had some really bad Nats defense that ended up being costly, as the defense continues to be a problem.
So on a day where there was obviously a lot of really important news that wasn't directly related to what happened on the field in the game, the most important things I think that happened in this game were the lack of fundamentals by the Nationals. And that's the defense, and it's the lack of execution at the plate when there were so many opportunities to score. What all they really needed was one more run at some point across all those different late innings to win the game in a walk-off fashion or to take a lead going into the 8th or the 9th. And that, you could tell, was really what upset Blake Butera. We've come to recognize he really cares about defense, and he cares about just fundamentally sound baseball.
We made too many mistakes to beat a team like this.
The defense, throwing to the wrong base, as you point out. The play by Garcia at first base. I mean, it was an ugly looking play. It was originally scored a single, which I don't know why that was the case. It, was clearly in error.
Swinging a ground ball to the first baseman. It's past Garcia, trying to reach down and scoop it. That was not a great effort there, as Garcia, rather than trying to get in front of it, tried to reach down and olay it, and he totally missed it.
He just didn't even move or attack that ball the way you would ever expect a major league first baseman to do it. He just kind of stuck his glove out and hoped for the best. Not good. James Wood, as we said, 2 errors on one play, and then throwing through to third base when there was no reason, no need to do that. You add all that up, and that'll get a manager upset. And that was certainly the case for Butera in this one. And, they played better defense for a couple of days, and then they fell right back into the same old trap in this one, and it absolutely cost them. And as far as the offensive execution, it's about, you get a runner on third with less than 1 out, and you have a chance to take the lead or even win the game, and you can't get that runner home with a good quality at bat. Those are the things that I think are very difficult for them to accept when you're hitting ground balls, when you're swinging at pitches out of the zone. I mean, there were too many to count in this game. That's why they lost the game. It really didn't have anything to do with what happened in the 12th inning. It really didn't have much to do with what happened in the first few innings of the game. It was bad defense and then those failed opportunities when all they needed was a fly ball, a base hit, whatever it was, to get a runner in from third, and they just could not do it.
Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if the pitching was halfway decent. The pitching is not good, and the pitching in this game, again, big-time problems. Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation's Buy 4, Get 4 free sale. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
Pitch to King is hit in the air out to deep center field, chasing Rosario way back out there in deep right center, and it one-hops the fence at the 4:05 marker. Mate scores with ease as King is to third, standing an RBI triple.
Window Nation has a great offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast, the Buy 4, Get 4 free sale, during which you could replace all of your home's windows and get half of them for free. Plus, you can get your windows with no money down and no payments or interest for 2 years. The sale ends soon, so call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com now to book a consultation. 866-99-WINDOW-NATION or windownation.com to book a consultation, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
And the first pitch swung on, driven to the air to deep center. Weimer going back, stops. He can only watch this one. Long gone off the back wall, well beyond the center field fence. A tremendous home run by Brett Beatty, his third of the year, his 18th run batted in. That gives him a 7-game hitting streak and hits in his last 8 out of 9. It's now the Nationals 3 and the Mets 2.
Jake Irvin was the Nats starting pitcher. He officially allowed 3 runs, just 1 earned in 4 innings. He lasted for 4 innings. He gave up 5 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 3 singles. He did have 6 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He threw 74 pitches, 47 strikes, 27 balls. So he gave up a mammoth homer by Brett Beatty to center field to cut the Nats lead to 3-2. That happened in the 4th. The homer went a projected 451 feet per StatCast. Look, the Nats committed 3 errors during Irvin's time in the game. He did do some good things. His velocity was up. That was nice. And, he got hurt by the bad defense. But, just for him to last for 4 innings, these Nats pitchers, they come into these games. And right now, if you get more than 4 2/3 innings, you're like thrilled about it. It's amazing to me how frequently we are seeing Nats pitchers last for like 3 innings, 4 innings. And then the Nats relief pitching in this game. This ended up being something. 5 Nats relievers and a position player, Jorbit Vivas, officially combined to allow 13 runs, 10 earned in 8 innings. PJ Poulin officially allowed 1 run in 1 inning. He gave up that 2-run single by Juan Soto. Mitchell Parker was good. He allowed 1 run in 3 innings. He gave up a solo homer by Bo Bichette. Orlando Revolta was good. He tossed a perfect top of the 9th on just 9 pitches. Gus Varland allowed 1 run unearned in 2 innings. By the way, he committed an error, committed a throwing error on a pickoff attempt. And then came that 10-run 12th. Paxton Schultz officially allowed 7 runs, 6 earned in a third of an inning. And Vivas officially allowed 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. What was the confusion with Vivas and whether he could pitch?
The confusion was, believe it or not, the Washington Nationals knew the correct rule and the umpires did not. You are allowed in extra innings to use a position player regardless of the score. Prior to extra innings, there is a requirement of a 10-run deficit earlier in the game or an 8-run deficit later in the game. But once you get to extra innings, you can do whatever you decide you need to do. Blake Butera knew that. That's why he brought Vivas in. And none of the 4 umpires on site seemed to know that that was the rule. They had to call New York headquarters. It took a long time before New York was satisfied that that was okay as well. Really not a good look for all of them. And, we asked Blake Butera, how confident were you? He said, very confident. We're all in the press box scrambling to look up the rule to make sure we weren't mistaken by it. But no, that's the rule. It was a bad look for the umpires. And, there's that moment where Paxton Schultz is walking back out to the mound. And you're like, there's no way this is going to happen. Now, if somehow they didn't allow the switch to take place, Blake Butera said he would not have allowed Paxton Schultz to throw another pitch.
It was very frustrating, yeah. Just the optics of it, of course, and then also, possibly having to ask Schultz to come back on the mound, just all of it. And I told them, we're not asking some other pitcher to come out here. We'll do whatever we have to, just in terms of health, injuries, just can't let that happen.
This was his 3rd straight day on the mound. He'd already thrown 25 pitches in this inning. They would have done something weird like putting him in the outfield. If the idea was he can't come out of the game because they were using the DH, something or other, they would have just stuck somebody else out there to finish it and put Schultz in the outfield. In the end, they were confident they didn't have to do any of that. The umpires finally figured it out. It didn't come to that. But that's a bad look for the umpires, of course, and just a bad look in general at what was such a tight, competitive, close game for it to end up as really a mockery there at the end. That wasn't a good look for anybody.
I would say this, though. I think that's actually a really good look for Blake Butera and for the Nats that they knew the rule, and all this talk about, Blake Butera, he's so young. He's never done anything past the lowest levels of the minors. And here he is knowing something that the umpiring crew did not know. I actually think that makes Blake Butera look quite good. Schultz, and what ended up being that 10-run 12th, gave up 5 singles, issued an intentional walk. Vivas in the inning gave up 2 doubles and 2 singles. It's hindsight, and I know so much is matchup based, but Revolta tosses a perfect top of the 9th on just 9 pitches. The Nats' next off day isn't until a week from Thursday. shouldn't Rebalta have pitched more than one inning with him working that perfect top of the ninth so quickly? I mean, again, I know a lot of this is matchup based, but we've seen this a few times here lately where you see a reliever do well and you're like, he could have gone another inning, and he's not asked to go another inning.
Yeah, and I think it ties in with this idea of how much do you value the matchups in the moment and trying to win that game versus understanding what do we need to have tomorrow still available to us. And I think that's part of the equation. I would even go all the way back to the decision to pull Jake Irvin, one batter into the fifth. And I get it. He didn't look great. The pitch count was getting up there a little bit. But if he could somehow get you through the fifth inning, that at least sets you up a little bit better. There was a domino effect from pulling him that kept going on the rest of the game. And really, this is a domino effect of all these games here lately where the starter is not going deep or where they're using an opener and purposely limiting Michaelis or Littell and then using a starter in relief as a bulk guy like Andrew Alvarez. The situation they got into in this game, they technically had 3 pitchers available still in the bullpen. It was Andrew Alvarez. He had just pitched, he had 2 days rest and he's a starter and you're not going to bring him back like that. You had Brad Lord who pitched 27 pitches in 1 inning on Sunday. And I think we talked about that, him not coming back for another inning. And then you had Richard Lovelady, who was the opener on Sunday and threw 27 pitches as well. So they had decided that those guys were off limits. Schultz was supposed to be off limits, but he was like the emergency. If it comes to it, we're just going to have to pitch him out there. So yeah, you can go back and say, well, maybe let this guy go a little further or bring this guy out for a second inning. To me, it's really all the aggressive maneuvering earlier in the game and really over the last several days. If you're going to try to continue to go with this idea of not asking your starters to give you 5 or 6 innings, but using openers and pulling guys like Michaelis and Littell after one time through the order, it's going to catch up with you eventually. And I think that's what happened in this game.
And so we expect quite a few more roster moves to come for the Nats before Game 2 of this series. But we shall see. Game 2 for the Nats against the Mets at Nationals Park Tuesday evening at 6:45. The Nats have listed Foster Griffin as their probable starting pitcher for the game. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Man, is there a lot to process from your Nats Monday, including Dylan Cruz being promoted back to the majors and late night on Monday night, Brady House being optioned to AAA Rochester. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Shirt Good, owned and operated by a diehard Nats fan. Shirt Good makes funny and local shirts, such as the iconic Howie Kendrick foul pole shirt. Check out Shirt Good at shirtgoodhq.com or ShirtGoodHQ on Instagram and use the code NatsChat for 10% off your order. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Dylan Cruz hits against him now. The pitch, fastball high, fly ball into right, carrying well. Piñango back to the warning track. He's at the fence. He jumps up, and it's out of here. Dylan Cruz goes the other way to right, and Cruz starts the scoring today with an opposite field home run. 1-0 Rochester.